Alright, good afternoon. My name is Mason Dizick, and this is my special topic presentation. This is going to be the final for CS385 due on April 28th, 2024. The topic I picked is WPA3. It is known as Web or Wi-Fi Protected Access Iteration 3. The topics I'm looking to cover are going to be the history and progression, the utility, the vulnerabilities, and a breakdown/conclusion of my findings. Now, for the history and progression of the protocols. This all started back in the late 1990s when WEP, the wireless equivalent privacy, was in development. It became widely used from 2002 to 2004, and it is now known to have been a severely flawed attempt at security for 802.11 networks. WPA, its replacement, which was only a temporary measure until WPA2 was going to be released, would be ratified by the IEEE in 2003. WPA2, otherwise known as 802.11i-2004, as you can imagine, was ratified in 2004 by the IEEE. It was the planned replacement for WEP because, as stated, WPA was only meant to be a placeholder until this was introduced. WPA2 introduced a more robust AES block cipher and key rotation schedules, and another good thing is that many devices could be updated from WEP to WPA/WPA2 with a firmware upgrade. Now, WPA2 was widely used from March of 2006 all the way until June of 2020. It was a robust system until the publication of Crack, which I will talk about later on. WPA3 was its replacement and was ratified in June of 2018, and then later became mandatory in July of 2020. It aimed to enhance the WPA2 PSK handshake, which was the authentication method used in the authentication stage of the connection by WPA2. WPA3 did this with the SAE authentication, the simultaneous authentication of equals, and it integrated something known as MFP, management frame protection, for intrusion prevention. Now, what is the utility of WPA? Why do you need this? WPA is in place so that you can ensure a reliable and secure internet connection, and it works to do this in different stages. In my summary, I use the analogy of a locked set of double doors in a hallway. So the first stage is going to be initialization. That's the stage where the user or device connects using an Ethernet cable, or in this case, a Wi-Fi network. Next up, you're going to have the authentication stage, which is where the user device sends a request to the access point, which in most cases is going to be a router. This is where SAE comes into place and confirms the authenticity of device credentials and then allows the connection to the access point. Next up, after the connection is allowed, DHCP is going to assign a unique IP address to the device for its own identification and to allow data transmission. And now the connection is established and the user can communicate with data packets through the router to other devices. Management frame protection is going to be used throughout this entire process to digitally sign management frames, which makes it much more difficult to tamper with or to forge any of them. Now, as we know, nothing is flawless, so what are some of the security concerns? So for vulnerabilities, I went ahead and included some for every iteration. Starting with WEP, it had a very weak security system, only utilizing 24-bit security. which is approximately 16.8 million, compared to the current WPA3 192-bit authentication, which is approximately 6.3 times 10 to the 57th power. That is a massive difference. Now, WPA was riddled with problems because it inherited its encryption methods from WEP, and it was only ever meant to be a placeholder. WPA2 was, by all accounts, a robust system, and it worked well. But in 2017, the previously mentioned crack attack was published, and this was what essentially killed WPA2. Crack relied on tricking clients to install known keys, something like all zeros, and then the key would be used to bypass security entirely and decrypt any of the data. There were attempts to revive WPA2 by patching the vulnerabilities, but those patches were also found to be faulty. And WPA3 was and is currently the most robust of these protocols, but nothing's without its own flaws. SAE greatly improves security of the handshake and does this by allowing the device and the access point to authenticate without passing the actual password or passphrase to each other, and this protects against passive eavesdropping and dictionary attacks. So the vulnerabilities in WPA3 are things like the Dragon Blood attack, which is a downgrade attack that forces the device to switch from WPA3 down to WPA2, thereby inheriting the flaws of WPA2 in order for the threat actor to exploit. The two-side channel offline dictionary attack refers to when the attacker intercepts data from the authentication process and attempts to brute force the password. And then I listed human nature because of the likelihood that a person would choose something extremely simple, easy to remember, or easy to deduce based on publicly available knowledge of them as their password or passphrase for convenience without ever considering any of the security ramifications that might have. Now for the breakdown and conclusion. In my own thoughts, WPA3 is one of the most secure protocols that we have, but nothing is foolproof. The biggest flaw is also the best feature, the ability to create personalized short passwords or passphrases is one of the biggest problems with this system because they can be so easily deduced based on publicly available information for most people, and that automatically creates a giant hole in your security system. It is sophisticated, but it is not foolproof at all. And it has three main modes: the personal, obviously, then there are also enterprise and enhanced open, and in order to ensure security, there are multiple stages, as I mentioned, but no system is foolproof yet. And that's all I have for you. Thank you. Oh, yes, and here are also my references. Thank you.